Hello, welcome to my model railway at Gowerton Parkway. Now this is the first video that I've done on the layout, so you have to bear with me. The intention for this channel and for the videos going forward is basically to provide you with some layout tours, run-in sessions, and perhaps a few how to do kind of instructional videos and share some of the techniques that I've learned over time. Now, my layout, you may have seen it before. It's quite a big presence on Facebook, and I have a thread on RM Web. The layout itself has been in the making since about 2013, I would say now. So we've been going a few years, and we're coming to a stage approaching completion, if you can ever say a model railway is complete, which you probably can't. In any case, what I'll do initially is just take you around the layout, show you what's what. I know a few people have seen running sessions on my old channel and have urged me to give a full tour so people can get to grips with what's going on. So without further ado, I will get to it. The area of the layout to introduce you to is the station. Now the station features two through lines and a passing loop, which is primarily used for freight and comes out of the freight yard, which I'll show you a little bit later. So I'll just give you a bit of an overview of the platforms. Platforms themselves are built with plasterboard, and all of the retaining walls etc. have been scratch built. I have also scratch built this station. I've tried to go for something with a fairly modern twist, so we've got a glass fronted building, a couple of lift towers etc, which will serve passengers for getting to the top level, which is where the town scene is based, down to the platform. In front of the station I have a small network rail siding, for want of a better phrase. This I'll normally stable a single locomotive in, just provides a little point of interest. I would say the loose inspiration for that's come from the Gantry road stabling point that used to be outside Newport station, albeit this is a pretty piddly version of it. So I shall show you a bit up closer now the station building itself. So the station building itself has just been, it's been basically furnished with the odd bits and pieces. This is by no means a masterpiece, but I wanted something slightly different from your proprietary backman buildings, which I am guilty of using elsewhere on the layout. But for the station, I wanted something with a bit more of a modern twist, that that gives a good modern feel, which hopefully has been achieved. What I'll do next, I'll show you up and around the town scene, which runs onto the station itself, just so you can get an idea of that. The area of the layout to introduce you to is the station. Now the station features two through lines and a passing loop, which is primarily used for freight and comes out of the freight yard, which I'll show you a little bit later. So I'll just give you a bit of an overview of the platforms. Platforms themselves are built with plasterboard, and all of the retaining walls etc. have been scratch built. I have also scratch built this station. I've tried to go for something with a fairly modern twist, so we've got a glass fronted building, a couple of lift towers etc, which will serve passengers for getting to the top level, which is where the town scene is based, down to the platform. In front of the station I have a small network rail siding, for want of a better phrase. This I'll normally stable a single locomotive in, just provides a little point of interest. I would say the loose inspiration for that's come from the Gantry road stabling point that used to be outside Newport station, albeit this is a pretty piddly version of it. So I shall show you a bit up closer now the station building itself. So the station building itself has just been, it's been basically furnished with the odd bits and pieces. This is by no means a masterpiece, but I wanted something slightly different from your proprietary backman buildings, which I am guilty of using elsewhere on the layout. But for the station, I wanted something with a bit more of a modern twist, that gives a good modern feel, which hopefully has been achieved. What I'll do next, I'll show you up and around the town scene, which runs onto the station itself, just so you can get an idea of that. So this is the town scene. Now I did mention that I'm guilty of using proprietary Bachmann buildings and Hornby buildings, and here you go, Exhibit A. I'm guilty of using the buildings, but I have customised them all myself to try and give them a bit more of a personal feel. I've gone for a fairly modern high street. You've got your well-known stores and banks, etc. A couple of people that have fallen over there. Furnished with quite a lot of Oxford die-cast and Carrama cars, which I've collected. We've got a nice pub here. So this pub is the Great Western. Great Western pub. This used to be a bank. This was a Hornby bank, so I figured that Wetherspoons seemed to turn a load of banks into pubs, so that's what I've done. And then you've got the second part of the shopping parade, which features, again, modern store-fronted buildings that have all been painted up, detailed, etc, etc. So I will pan out a little just to try and give you a better overview of the town scene itself. You'll probably note there's quite a lot of stuff laying around on the layout. I haven't really prepared very well for doing this video, but I thought it'd be a good idea to get something out there, some content out there as soon as possible. And that's the town scene. In the station now, we come over to the Nuclear Flask Depot. The Nuclear Flask Depot, something I've always been interested in. I wanted to have a fairly unique sort of area on the layout that not many people model. Turns out I'm wrong, a lot of people do model nuclear flask points, but whatever. I quite like it. I think it's a nice touch. And that runs along the front of the main lines, and just here we've got the this is a siding, well not siding, it's a freight loop that comes out of the freight yard and back down into the station. As you follow the layout round now, we come across a motorway bridge, which is the M4 in inverted commas. So I've just gone for, yeah, and again with this there's quite a bit of rubbish laying around on this at the minute which needs tidying up, so the screwdriver, etc., they aren't actually a permanent fixture on the motorway. We've got a gantry that I've scratch built this fairly early on in the build of the layout. Pretty naff, probably could do with redoing. A lot of the fence I've actually robbed and put on my small exhibition layout downstairs. That needs replacing. My small exhibition layout is Talbot Lane TMD. I'll show you that at a later date. But yeah, you get the idea. If I tidied this up and made it neater, it would provide a much nicer focal point for the layout. Just pan back round and give you a shot of the Flask Depot, back down to the station. So I hope that gives you a bit more of an idea of how this side of the layout looks. Down to the end of the layout, so it's basically just a fairly sweeping curve. Got a tunnel that runs out to the Fiddle Yard. We've got a hillside area with a signal box, etc. The layout continues to curve round, and then there is a further piece of track that runs out into the Fiddle Yard, which I will show you in more detail a little bit later on in the video. So that's this end of the layout. Just to give you some idea of size, that is 8 feet across and the length of the layout is 13 feet. As we come over to this side of the layout now, this is the two main lines, large freight yard and TMD, basically inspired by Margam. What I'll do with this, I shall just pan back round to the other direction to give you a better view of the TMD, etc. So here you can see the TMD part of the layout. This sits just in front of the freight yard that I mentioned. I've drawn inspiration from Margam Knuckle Yard for this. I've wanted something where I could display large freight trains on scene, as it were, and that you could actually view them coming in and out of the yard. So I figured this was the best way to tackle it. Now being some sort of 4 or 5 years down the line with the layout, this is by no means the way I would build a layout now, but I kind of stuck with it now, and I've no intention of ripping it up on the basis of the hours that I've put into it so far. I just consider myself quite lucky and grateful to have a layout of a decent size. Panning around in this direction now, we have the fueling point for the layout. Again, guilty of using Bachmann buildings, etc. I know, not very good, but whatever. And I just detailed this with all sorts of bibs and bobs and paraphernalia and a blown up decoder, etc, etc. So that gives you a bit of a feel for this side of the layout. I will pan a little bit further down for you. You have to excuse the dodgy camera work. This has all been done on a phone and I'm not used to doing this, so apologies. That's the main length of the layout. Yeah. You have to excuse Sebastian Vettel that's just passed outside. Okay, and then the other end of the layout, this curves back round, block of flats with a Class 47 parked on top of a DVD case, standard feature for any model railway. I highly recommend it to anyone. And then it just pans back round to under the town scene. I think what I'll do next, I shall give you a little bit of information on the era that I model, and then I'll take you for a tour around the Fiddle Yard and try and give you some sort of broader view shots. Here we are at the end of the layout now, just to give you a quick pan around so you can see exactly what we've got. The layout is scenic on all sides, probably something I wouldn't do again if I built a layout. It's not very realistic from running perspective, and something I'd definitely change the next time I build a layout. So as I mentioned, I would talk you through the era that the layout is based. Now this layout is based from, I'd say, 1999 through to about 2006, 2007. This allows me to run all the stuff I like, so your British built diesels, a lack of Class 66s, but you know, you've got all of your nice sector liveries and you know, your load haul stuff, your mainline stuff, etc. Stuff that I really enjoy modelling. So yeah, that gives you some idea of that. So hopefully you've got a more general sweeping view now of the layout itself. I will now take you for a tour around the Fiddle Yard. Now in the other half of the loft, as you can see, we've got the Fiddle Yard here. The Fiddle Yard runs off the layout through the tunnel, which we had a little look at earlier, and onto the main line, which we saw the entry point a little bit earlier also. The Fiddle Yard has got a small amount of sidings. I think there's 7 or 8 there, and that gives me ample storage for some decent length trains. So I've got, in the second longest, a 7-car HST, and in the first longest, a nice MGR train, which I'm currently working on, which is 21 wagons long. I can probably sneak another one in there as well, so we'll do that. Fiddle Yard's looking cool. So looking the other way on the Fiddle Yard now, runs round into a dog bone return loop kind of scenario. So anything that runs on can run around this return loop. Camera work's awful, sorry. Back into its sidings and ready to go back out onto the layout. So I think some of you are probably looking at this and looking at the space I've got here thinking, well, why haven't you built the layout in the entire of the loft? And basically, in short, when I initially built the layout, I bottled it. I thought it'd be too much for me to handle. Again, it's something I do regret now, but I've come too far with it to start changing it now. In hindsight, I probably have one entire side of the loft scenic, the other entire side of the loft as a Fiddle Yard, but there we go. Live and learn, and as I mentioned, I'm grateful for what I do actually have. So what I'll do now, I'll just pop back over to the main layout and just show you a couple of other things before we close the video off. So here we are back at the layout. Thanks for your patience with the video so far. Just taking a little bit of time out to review what I've produced so far, and if you're still watching this now, I'm quite impressed, especially after the fact I said about 70 million times. Hopefully as time goes by, my count will reduce from somewhere around 75,000 down to just the 5,000 per video, but I do apologise for that. So quick last pan around the layout, just to let you know, next videos that I'm hoping to produce will be on the exhibition layout, Talbot Lane TMD, which is downstairs in the spare room. Layout updates themselves probably going to be fairly few and far between. As you can see, the layout's in quite a complete state, so there's not really a lot to talk about from a layout point of view. From updates, I will be doing a little bit of tweaking over the other side of the layout to try and neaten it up a bit. I've started doing it on this side, on the station side, and yeah, if there's anything of significance I'll put it in the video for you, but let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel, I'll appreciate it. I'd like to give a big thanks to New Junction, who have given me some good assistance with the creation and encouragement to create this video, so thanks to our friends over at New Junction. If you could go and give their channel a like and a subscribe, that'd be great. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other videos you want to see, and we'll hopefully be back soon if there's enough interest. Cheers, thanks very much, bye.